right, well, welcome back to Speaking Queerly. My name is Mallory. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Civic Engagement and Advocacy Manager here at KYC. And I'm so excited to introduce you all to a couple very special guests today. I will let them introduce themselves and we can have the conversation.
Cool. I'm Leobeliz, or you can call me Leo. They, them, ella pronouns, and I'm the Center-Based Program Manager at KYC.
I'm Gabriella Quirch, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm a current senior at Ohio State University and part of the Morrill Scholars program.
Awesome. And we're going to talk all about this Morrill Scholars program. So if you're scratching your head like, wait, what is this? Never heard of it. That is actually what we're here to talk about today. But first, I want to know a little bit more about you. So what year are you in school, and, what are you studying?
Yeah, I'm a fourth year. I'll be graduating in a few days from a biochemistry program and zoology program.
Oh, wow.
Congrats.
Thank you
That's
so much.
amazing.
Yeah.
What is your hope after graduation? I know that is like the worst question you could be asked right now, but like, what are some of your like aspirations moving forward?
So I will be taking a year to rest and sleep for once, and then during the next cycle of applications for master's programs, I want to look for ecology programs to pursue habitat rehabilitation.
That's amazing. That's such a needed thing.
Yeah.
Is it something you're hoping to do here in Ohio or like anywhere, or is there like a specific cause that you're drawn to?
Gosh, I love Ohio, and I think that conservation efforts are needed everywhere. I'm more familiar with our native wildlife. I am focusing on like wetlands right now, which we have everywhere. So, wherever I'm needed.
Yeah, that is really amazing. Those are the kinds of things that like I am like passionate about, and I wish that that was like my chosen career path or whatever. But then when I realized how much science and like math and biology and all these things, I'm like, wow, I could be the social media person for all the people who are doing these things.
We need you too.
Right. To like help spread the word and all that. So that's very, very cool.
Thank you.
I admire that.
I admire you.
Well, we're so excited to have you on today. This is actually like a really fortunate thing for me because you all actually reached out to us wanting to be on an episode of Speaking Queerly. And basically, if that happens, for those of you listening at home, if you're listening and you're like, gee, I want to be on an episode of Speaking Queerly, seriously, send me an email. Makes my life a lot easier because it's less content for me to plan, right? And especially when we were talking about, the reason why you wanted to be on to promote this scholarship program. And that kind of brings us to why Leo is here too. And I just want to hear from both of your experiences, what is the Morrill Scholars program?
I'll start off.
Yeah, go for it.
So the Morrill Scholars program is a program that you are entered by default if you receive the Morrill Scholarship. It's the premier diversity scholarship at Ohio State. You just have to write an essay to apply to it. And if you're accepted to OSU and you receive that scholarship, then you are a Morrill Scholar. This does not obligate you to really do anything besides keep up a 3.0 GPA. Other than that, you are not asked to do anything. The Office of Diversity and Inclusion is the one that facilitates this scholarship, and they understand that schools comes first. But people who do receive the scholarship are those that have demonstrated through their essay that they want to be social leaders, social advocates, and promote acceptance, diversity, and safety socially on campus.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so you've been part of this program then for all 4 years at this point, right? So you applied as a senior and you have been part of it, and that was your experience as well, right?
Yes,
so
correct.
What I want to know, and this is something that like I'm always curious about with folks, when you apply for this, right, you're a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed like incoming freshman, right? You're doing this in your senior year, and while I was not part of this program, right, I can probably relate to the fact that like you're applying for these things your senior year, and you're involved in lots of things. You have this idea of where you're going to be in the world, or like how you're going to impact the world over the course of the next 4 years, but then also moving forward, right? And sometimes those ideas change of like who you think you are when you start the program. And we're getting real deep here right at the beginning. So like for instance, when I first started college, or when I was applying for things my senior year, I thought that I wanted to be the next Robin Roberts on Good Morning America, right?
Yeah.
Like I wanted to be this person telling these like heartfelt stories, being the face of news and telling the story of history, whatever. I remember these essays that I wrote where I was like, yeah, I'm going to be the one writing the first draft of history, whatever. And then fast forward to a couple years into my college experience, and maybe that's not the trajectory that I saw myself in, and certainly is not where I see myself now. And so I just want to know from both of you, like, where did you see yourself going when you were a senior in high school, and maybe how did your time in this program or maybe just time in college change that?
Yeah. Do you want me to go first this
Yeah.
time? Cool. Yeah, it changed me like a lot. Like I saw a lot of growth in myself with that. I wanted to go to OSU for engineering. I took some engineering classes in high school, and I thought that was gonna be it for me. I changed after my freshman year to social work. So if you're scared of changing majors, go for it. It's better than being stuck somewhere that you don't want to be.
And that's like seemingly a pretty big jump from engineering to social work.
Yes, like a total.
How did that?
It's a spectrum. With the support of, I was in the Morrill Scholars learning community as well, so I had a tight-knit group that made it easier to the transition to college, having already like friends that I connected with, and also like a diverse community. In my high school wasn't very diverse, so already having that was very appreciated. And I had their support. A lot of them were in different majors, different education levels and all that stuff, and different connections. So when I was like, I really cannot see the light at the end of the tunnel with engineering. I don't know what's going on. I'm having a hard time. They were there to support me on like, well, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? Based on what you like, maybe this. I have an aunt that's a social worker that you could talk to if you want to kind of discover those things. And then with the classes too, like we had to take classes for being in the learning community.
Sure.
So we had at least one class that we all took together, and a lot of them were based on like diversity, advocacy, social justice, and all those things. And I've always loved being part of that in some way, but that just really sparked it. And then adding that to social work and seeing like some of them, like the professors were social workers, so I was able to talk to them about it and be like, yeah, that's what I want to do. And that's what I see myself doing better. And also during the MSP program, the 4 years in college, that's when I came out. Yeah, because I didn't, before high school, I was like, I don't know. I'm just this quiet person getting through school, getting the grades that I need. And then I got to OSU and the MSP program. It was like that thing of like your friend group. Everyone starts kind of like coming out, and then you're like, wait a minute. Maybe that's me too, because then you start asking and all that. And they were very supportive with everything. And I just kept finding my voice too, being motivated and supported to speak up and do things like that as well.
That's cool. It really seems like the group kind of fosters that like introspection as well as that awareness of social issues and, the need to be involved in your community, but it also is emphasizing the need to reflect and think about like, what are my values? How do I see myself contributing to the world in some way? Who am I in the world? That's very cool. How about you?
Gosh, where do I begin? I would definitely agree that I was much more quiet before college, and then I get here, and just because OSU generally is so big, it's kind of hard to meet people despite them being people everywhere, unless you speak up for yourself. There's so many opportunities. It's hard to take one unless you direct yourself towards one. And so I learned to be more confident, to go for what I want. And then as for MSP specifically, I agree that it creates this even smaller community in an overwhelmingly large school of people that are of diverse backgrounds, that are like-minded in the sense that we want to be surrounded by different minds, I guess. That has given me opportunities to do things like this, where I'm like public speaking, which is weird. And also, as for my changes, I agree that the faculty within the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, who are dedicated to helping Morrill scholars and being resources for them, they want to help you out, and they're good at helping you out finding your career path. So shout out to Omar Sacker, not in med school or law school, but I have friends who are like, yeah, he called up a friend that he knows. They walked me through the whole process of applying to this, knowing what I'm getting into, like for any career. So you're going to change your major in college, like everyone does.
Right.
And it's really nice to know who to reach out to, and know that they really care about you and about like giving you good advice, because like in a school with like 60,000 students and only so many advisors, it's great to have someone like dedicated towards you.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that like misconception that your advisor is like the end all be all for your academic success or whatever. And it's like, no, they could be a great resource and they might not know who you are at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So to have those people who actually like know your first name, and not just your student ID number or whatever, right?
Exactly,
and have those mandatory meetings, it's like, no, they're there because they genuinely care about you.
Yeah.
I know that I would go into my academic advisor's office once per semester when I was scheduling my classes, and it would always be this big, like, okay, this is it, I'm changing my major, I'm changing everything, this is all terrible, and she'd be like, all right, let's take a deep breath, and then I would walk out of there being like, what was I worried about? I know, I got my whole life planned out, and then a semester later, it's like, okay, a new crisis, right?
Yeah.
And that's, again, to emphasize your point that, like, you will change your major in college, and, like, not everyone will. Some people won't, and that's awesome. I envy you. But same with that, like self-reflection and introspection. You go into college, you're picking a major or path, or even just a school generally, and you're 18, you're 17, 18.
Yeah.
You only know what you know, right? And so there's so many careers and paths and just opportunities that you have no idea exist. And for me, I think the worst question you can ask somebody is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And it's like 5 years ago, I would have had I didn't even know that KYC existed. I didn't even know what I didn't know, right? And so to limit somebody to say, like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? You could only see yourself in the frame that you know exists right now. So what I'm curious about is, like, what are some of those opportunities that came up for you while you were in the program that 5 years before being in the program, or maybe when you applied, you had no idea would have ever existed? Like, was there an opportunity to get involved on campus? Like, were you able to attend something or speak at something that you just never would have seen yourself in that position?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah,
this time?
sure.
Go ahead.
Definitely this. So I work through like a tiny club called Ours. It's the Office of Diversity and Inclusion's Undergraduate Recruitment Society.
I was looking that up again before you came, and I was like, I'm not going to remember this. It's like such a sweet little Hours acronym, and then you look at the number of words and they're like, ah!
Yeah, that's why we need acronyms. There are acronyms everywhere.
Right.
I got you though. But we are basically like a tiny little offshoot of the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, or ODI. And we are basically, it's mostly Morrill scholars. It's sometimes just like students from OSU who may not be MSP but want to talk about the scholarship. And it's mostly like students who are on the ground working with like people who are not in college yet. So we worked with like middle schoolers, high schoolers, elementary schoolers. And we talk about just college sometimes, because we try to like target communities where maybe that's not a conversation, or not, like, people don't always feel like it's a possibility. And we talk about college, and we talk about the scholarship, because not enough people know about it who might really need it if they choose college. And so that's been a huge opportunity for me to do public speaking, to work with like kids outside of like my siblings, which I didn't know that I would like so much. It's also, I was president for a year. I just passed that on after graduating. And being a leader is something I never saw myself doing.
Really?
That's a lot of responsibility, but I had a lot of fun with it. And it turns out that I like it. And what else? Other opportunities, like, again, the learning community, if you want to talk about that, I feel like that was a really great way, again, to make friends at such a big school.
For sure. Yeah, the learning community, I think you had to also kind of do a mini application for that in order to be there. So it was like you got into MSP, and then there was this other form to fill out to be part of the learning community if you wanted to. So you send that in, and then you either get accepted or not. If you get accepted, I don't remember how many of us were there, but a pretty good amount. And then you live in the same dorm as the people in the learning community, and you got to like move in a little earlier than everyone else. So that made it a little less anxiety provoking and like inducing. But yeah, so you come in and already like you're all on the same kind of page of like, this is college, I don't know what to expect, kind of thing. So you come in and everyone, like, it is such a diverse group, like even out of state, in state, it just depends. So you get a roommate, or depending on the dorm, it might be more than one roommate. And then you just live together, kind of have that one person. If anything, you have people around that since you take a class together, you do different things. We went to Washington, D.C. together.
Oh, cool.
So there's different trip opportunities, program opportunities that you can do through the learning community. And so you get closer to those folks and the faculty as well. And then usually the like RA was also MSP or has been for the most part, or it just depends on the dorm too. But yeah, it's a really fun time because you get to spend so many hours with these people. Like, I got really close to a big group of the ones that we were in the learning community together, and we would even go to like the dining halls at like 12 a.m. just to get water because we were playing like outside. That's when I learned Foursquare. That was like our main.
Really?
Yeah, so I got a really close group of friends that it was honestly one of the biggest things that I got out of being in MSP is finding that community. Also that I was looking for, because being a Latina in Ohio is hard. And then OSU just kind of gave that too, and just more diversity in general. Yeah. So yeah, it was great to meet those folks, be in classes together, be able to help each other out. Yeah, the learning community was a really great part of it, for me at least. And if you weren't in the learning community and still MSP, there were still events that were just MSP. Yeah. So you still had opportunities for like guest speakers or different activities, or like between fun and like learning events. And also that led to meeting other people in the community, like people from YSP, which are the Young Scholars Program. So got to meet a lot of them. Actually, one of my best friends is a young scholar that I met through a social work class, and you just kind of are like, oh, MSP, oh, YSP, and then it's kind of like,
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it really gives that, I feel like it opens that door to make those connections a little easier than just being at OSU and it's your first day and you don't have any connections kind of thing.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely recall like my first night on campus. Now, I didn't go to Ohio State. I went to Ohio University, so certainly smaller than, 60,000 students. But it's still the same thing where you're like coming from your small town in some corner of wherever, right? And you're suddenly thrust into this basically a city of all these people, and you're like, okay, who am I in relation to everything? Right. And the memory that I have is I didn't know my roommates prior to moving in. I had 2 roommates, and it was the first night. There was some sort of like orientation type program where it was like, everyone come to the gym and get pizza, and we're like, okay, sure, we don't know what else there's to do, and we don't know our way around campus, we don't know where we are. And I was trying to figure out what to wear. I want to look cool or something, I want to make friends. And we went to this gym, and we were hanging out, and we're walking around trying to figure out our way back to the dorms, and finally made it back, and I realized I locked my key in the dorm.
No.
And we had 1 free lockout per semester, right? So the RA or whoever would come and rescue you and unlock your dorm room for you. And then after that, it was like you had to pay a fee if you had another lockout. And I was like, I moved in 5 hours ago, and I've already used my free lockout. I was
the worst.
Mortified. But all that to say, like, I'm sure it was just a relief knowing that, you got to move in a little bit before everyone else on campus, get the lay of the land before there's all these other people surrounding you. I mean, it could be a nice way to ease into this transition, right?
It really is. And the free merch, too. I love getting free shirts.
Right.
But yeah, I really made it easier. Oh my gosh, the locking out the key. The amount of times that I wasn't locking out the key, but I forgot my key and I went to the shower, and then I had to be like, please let it through me. Too many times.
Yeah.
That's
horrible.
the worst. Yeah, I mean, I'm always fearful of that. Even still, like when I'm leaving my house, I always like double check, like, do I have my keys before I shut the door, even if the door isn't locked, right? Because that first night on campus, I mean, that
sticks with you.
That stuck with me, right?
Yeah,
So embarrassing.
absolutely.
Well, I want to talk a little bit more about like the diversity component of this. For me, you know, I grew up in a small-ish town in Ohio. Everyone was very white, and I mean, I too am white, right? So it's not like I'm, you know, experiencing something where I'm like, I feel othered by it, but I don't know if that really was something that I was reflecting on, right? Because I wasn't forced to reflect on it. Because the folks who I surrounded myself with looked like me, and, you know, that is a very particular experience. And when I went to college too, you know, I was thinking to myself, wow, this is a little bit more diverse, right? Because people are coming from different states, sometimes different countries, different parts of the state, whatever. And again, too, upon further reflection, it was still very white. And you kind of have to put yourself in situations where, you know, it's still very easy to find communities where everyone looks like you and thinks like you. And, you know, I was in a sorority, right? And so as a member of that sorority, I was still trying to seek out, like, all right, what other organizations can we partner with on campus? What are other ways that we can get outside of this small bubble in which we exist? But again, that takes effort, right? And so to be in this community, I think you described it as, you know, the thing that brings you together is the fact that you want to be with people who think differently. You worded it so much better than that, and I forgot. I'm going to have to pull that, but that was the sentiment, right? Where, you know, you're coming from all these different backgrounds, and the commonality that brings you together is the fact that you all want to be surrounded by people who think differently than you. And I think that is so cool, and something that, you know, I was trying to seek out, but maybe not from the perspective of a senior in high school, right? And so I want to know a little bit more about, like, when you say diversity, what does that look like in this program, right? And what does that look like in relation to the broader Ohio State campus?
I'll start off.
Cool. Go for it.
You can catch anything I miss.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that, like you said, I think there are some people who don't start off very cognizant of their place in relation to everyone else. But I feel like people who are in MSP have, you know, at the time that they write their essay, they've kind of gotten a sense of that already, either if it's because of being forced to understand your place within society, which comes from being like a minority, or maybe you're like, you know, a woman. I'm always, when I enter a room, like I clock, like if I'm the only like femme presenting person there, I'm kind of like, okay, like that's something that you just think about. And then there are people who, you know, have to be aware that they are the only ones of a certain religion when they walk into a room. And sometimes you suffer because of that. Sometimes, you know, that's something that people, especially when you consider intersectionality, then you get difficulties even if you're in a room who experience like the same race as you. It's just, it impacts your life in ways that if you consider it and you really think deeply upon it, that you also understand how you can make it better for other people who share that with you, or who maybe don't share the same kind of discrimination as you, but discrimination generally. And I think that people in MSP, they are people who, you know, OSU is still a predominantly white institution. We want to do better. That's why something like the Office of Diversity and Inclusion exists. We want equity, and it's necessary. But I would say that taking on the role of promoting diversity by just existing in a PWI, that takes a lot of responsibility. That's a lot to put on someone. You shouldn't have to do it, but some people say, I'm open to taking that on. And so ODI really, it doesn't want to ask anything of you, it just wants to help you do that. Otherwise, if you want to take that on, then the MSP Scholarship wants to give you money, wants to give you resources, friends, food, merch, anything, like, you know, anything to make that easier for you while you are tackling academia. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
It's like I hate to pull in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? But you know what I mean. They're meeting your basic needs, like your tuition, your food, your residence, and then you can focus on other things. That burden is alleviated. Maybe you don't have to work like 3 jobs just to pay tuition. You can use that time to organize on campus, or you can use that time to focus on your grades or whatever it is, right? So that's really cool. They offer that.
These people that got the scholarship usually, like I said, they demonstrate in their essay, like, I'm someone who is open to doing that. I'm someone who, wants to take part in the encampments. I want to speak out when I see things, even if I'm not experiencing them. I want or maybe I have experienced them, and I want to be able to share that with people, help them. So, yeah. What else?
That was really good. Yeah, I would say that keeping in mind that the diversity is not only when it comes to race or ethnicity, it's also like sexual identity, gender identity, religion, like all of those things. So it's worth looking into, even if you're like, maybe that's not me, but maybe it is. So you don't know. Like, it's just bringing in, like you said, all of those people together with like the different minds and perspectives and everything, just to make sure that we're all growing and learning from each other and different cultures in all the sense of that word. And yeah, just those different perspectives, taking part in advocacy and like supporting students and everything, like you said, the encampments and things like that are going on, and really taking a stand when things are going on, because like we need to support each other,
right,
in order to make change actually happen.
Absolutely. And to be in that supportive environment where you will be supported for partaking in this advocacy, theoretically, right? And we can talk about the encampments a little bit, because that's obviously something that's going on as we speak, not only in Ohio, of course, but everywhere throughout the United States. And my partner was talking about how Columbia University keeps getting all of this attention for the encampments there, but not necessarily wanting to bring attention to the backlash for the encampments here, but just pointing out like, hey, this advocacy is happening here in Ohio too. It's not just like folks on the coast who are speaking out, it's like folks here in the Midwest who are doing it too. And that's pretty remarkable to highlight that student advocacy too, and that commitment to a cause. We can talk about that a little bit too, of like, is that something that from your perspective, maybe, do you feel supported on campus as somebody who maybe is just like observing these protests? Maybe you've participated in them. Does it feel like that's something that is supported? And if you feel like at any point, like obviously you're not like a spokesperson for the program or for the university, but we can just have a candid conversation, right?
Yeah. I will say that there are a lot of moving parts to a university, especially such a big one. There are different parties with different interests. As it comes to the student community, I have always felt supported in issues such as, the Israel-Palestine war. I've always felt supported, like having the opinion that I do, speaking out on it. I will say that like students that disagree amongst one another, especially like I feel like with our generation generally, and at OSU, fortunately, people feel safe saying what they want to. As for law enforcement surrounded by campus and on campus, sometimes it's a different story, but we're seeing that kind of everywhere, and it's not always enforced by campus, but sometimes federal law, and so. That's why these protests are protests, is because, they are against something. But I would say, again, even like faculty and staff at OSU are taking part. So I understand that there are consequences of things. We all understand that, but we're still doing it.
Right.
Because there's such a huge community of students at OSU and at other schools that feel like it's necessary.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, I think it's interesting. We're talking about diversity in this program that is in place to help students participate in advocacy and social change, social justice. And then, we're thinking about, too, from like a United States perspective, just last year, the Supreme Court ruled against affirmative action. And we already see college campuses across the United States, my alma mater being one of them, removing diversity scholarships, even though that's not necessarily affirmative action, right? But like removing those scholarships. And so, the existence of the Morrill Scholars Program, like that's a testament to, presumably, at least on the surface, that commitment to diversity and inclusion. But then, we're talking about these protests where it's like, okay, we say that we want to support this. We have this program in place. We have these students who are willing to engage in this advocacy, and on the surface, like that's what we're supporting. And then we see what happens when students actually do, right? And so that's something that I've been like chewing on as I obviously I'm aware of what's going on, but also as we were preparing for this episode, just thinking to myself, like, what are the realities, you know what I mean, for students who are in this program where presumably you're told all the time, like, yeah, we support diversity, we support your voice matters. And then when you go to use it, is it heard? Is it actually being listened to in the way that you are told that it's going to be? I don't know. It's just, from an outsider looking in, I definitely feel like there's some discrepancies.
MSP ODI is part of a bigger force, and again, there are different moving parts to that. So MSP, as far as ODI, like people with high positions at ODI are concerned, they have spoken out like in support of certain activities, but again, like the university itself might have, ODI is not their only concern, like diversity is not their only concern, investors and other parties, it's disappointing. That's all I really can say.
I mean, as an alumni, it is really heartbreaking to see the things that are happening, especially with like peaceful demonstrations and protests for like students. Like it's their campus, they should be able to pray at the South Oval without having like all these both like CPD and then like OSU campus. It's just as someone that walked through that South Oval so many times, seeing that many officers, I was like, I've never seen that many for it to be just a peaceful protest. It's really like heartbreaking, really disappointing for sure. And I hope that OSU does hear that, and as a overall collective, because like you said, it is like they're more worried about other things, that they're able to actually hear their students and speak out for what the students are asking for. Because at the end of the day, like we just want like a free Palestine and like Palestina Libre kind of thing. So I hope that the support gets there and that they can just at least protest in peace,
right?
Which is what we all want.
Well, and as somebody who is aware of like not just this, but then you think about we were talking about the environment a little bit and how that's an issue that I'm passionate about. And I feel like the Venn diagrams of like people who care about one issue, they understand how everything is interconnected, right? And when you think about all of these interconnecting systems of oppression, it's very easy to feel like there is literally nothing I as an individual can do, right? It's so easy to feel helpless about all of the many perils of the world. And so I think it is really incredible to see like how many students across the country are doing what they can, right? So like, you as a student might not actually be able to go to the West Bank and, have some sort of peace treaty or whatever. Like you're not actually able to like enact a ceasefire on your own as an individual. But as all of these students across the country, like you're able to speak out, you're able to make some noise, you're able to make it known that like you're aware of these issues. You're not just a student, you're not just some Ohioan, right? You are somebody who cares about the broader global community. It's I think it's pretty remarkable, and something that I keep seeing on social media, I'm sure others have too, is like, why is it that student protesters were always right in history but not today? Unbelievable, right? I mean, what an astute remark, because it's true. Every single one of us can sit here right now and think, gosh, in the civil rights movement of the 1960s, I certainly would have been out there marching and protesting. I certainly would have been, sitting at the lunch counters trying to protest in this peaceful way or whatever, right? Or at least in this nonviolent way. where are you now, right? Where do you stand on things
Right.
now? If you're a student now, are you sitting there glorifying these movements of the past without participating in the movements of the present? It's, you know, and there's a variety of reasons why somebody might not be able to, right? It's finals week. If you're like needing to focus on finals in this moment, right? But if you're somebody who's done with finals, like, why aren't you sitting out there? It's interesting.
And there's different ways to support too, because there's the risk of it all too, and there's like you can engage in social media, like send in, like
donate,
financially support, like all those things, absolutely.
You could be there to cook your roommate a meal when they get home from protesting.
Moral
you know
support.
Yes, there's so many ways that you can engage in the cause, and I think that's something too. Like there is a risk to engaging in protests. Like in 2020, I was walking with the Black Lives Matter protest happening downtown, and I got tear gassed. And I'm not gonna lie, like that was traumatic, right?
Yeah.
And I am fearful of going to protests now because I'm thinking about like how horrendous that was to experience. And then I'm also over here like, okay, well, what is that in comparison to the greater issues, right? Like what is that in comparison to like people who are actually getting bombed and all that too? And so it's just something that everybody has to grapple with their own safety risk, their own, ability to access these protests, their ability to get there and, be there for that period of time, and knowing that like there's so many other ways that you can support the cause too.
For sure.
Everyone has their own capacity to help to like go march, and again, it's important to maintain your health so that you can keep doing things. Like you need to sustain yourself. So any effort is important and appreciated. This is coming from someone who is not suffering at the hands of certain issues, but I don't want to put down people that can't make it out. So like, just like you were saying, if you want to make food for someone, that's a really great idea. Shout as loud as you can on social media. Just don't feel hopeless. That's the point. Don't feel hopeless. Don't feel like you're doing nothing just because you're one person. You can't make a difference. That's the most important thing.
For sure.
Because if everybody is just one person, like together, we're this mass.
Right. Absolutely.
It's something that, gosh, I mean, we're all thinking about daily, right? For so many different issues. And to kind of pivot back to the scholarship too, like something that I'm thinking about is Senate Bill 83, which is moving through the legislature. I don't know if you've talked about that in your just day-to-day existence on campus, but this bill would effectively fundamentally change how universities can operate here in Ohio. It would get rid of all sorts of programs like this, like anything related to diversity, identity. It would get rid of programs like women's centers and LGBT centers and anything that would kind of, quote unquote, other somebody. It's basically saying like, oh, we don't want to discriminate against people based on their identity. And it's like, no, it would be stripping people of these safer spaces, of these communities where they can exist with other people who share similar identities, right? It would prevent universities from having any sort of DEI training for instructors and for faculty members, things like that. Right. So like, I mean, the list goes on, but that's like fundamentally what the bill would do. And it's made its way pretty far through the legislative process, but there's amendments, that are being worked out. The members of the House and the Senate, they have to work out their differences and decide, like, is this something that we want to move forward? Because there's some people who say no, and then other people are really staunchly trying to push this forward. So there's some of that infighting as well. But, it's something that you think about on campus, like, you've reaped the benefits of one of these programs that may well be victimized by this legislation, and kind of talk about like what that would mean if this program hadn't existed for you. I mean, it's hard to speak in hypotheticals, but how would your life be different if this didn't exist? How would other students' lives be different?
You can start.
Okay. I mean, my whole experience would have been totally different. Totally. I wouldn't have gotten there's always a chance that you would still find those people, but in such a big institution, very, very low.
Well, and then thinking too, like maybe you wouldn't have found those people because maybe those people would have gone to other states where these programs did exist.
For sure,
right?
because that is one of the. I mean, that's the main reason I went to OSU was because
Really?
I did get the scholarship. When I got the call, because they call you and they're like, well, at least they called me. He was like, "Are you sitting down?" I'm like,
What a way to propose
You should sit down now.
Yeah. And he was like, "You got the scholarship," and then I go get my mom. I'm like, "Mom," and he was like, "Go make them go get you some ice cream," and I'm like, "Yes, sir." So it was it really changed. Because also being an immigrant and coming to this country, like my parents sacrificed a lot, and I do have a lot of privileges compared to other people that immigrate to the United States, and still like having to spend so much money on getting a college education is really a lot.
Right.
So
Brutal.
so being able to in a way have had my efforts in high school and get this scholarship and for OSU to offer this like MSP to exist, it made me feel like I was giving a big thank you to my parents.
Wow.
And being able to kind of relieve them of that, which they would have done everything because they wanted to support me and my education and everything, but like it's just a sense of relief, to be able to give them like, hey, I'm gonna go to college and you don't have to worry about it, kind of thing. So it was really good. But yeah, I probably wouldn't have met the people that I met, and they were like some of my closest friends. I learned so much from them. Like again, I came out. Maybe I wouldn't have come out if I didn't have MSP. Maybe I would have stayed in engineering and probably be miserable right now. Like no hate to engineering.
I mean, you love your Legos.
But
you would have enjoyed it.
Yes,
Right?
I would have found something, but I don't think like the feeling that I get from like social work and then eventually finding KYC and interning here, and then MSP also with getting the connections with those other communities. I found ASI, which is Alpha Psi Lambda, Latino ed, like co-ed Latino fraternities. So without that, I wouldn't have found those connections that I got, and that's where I found my fiance. So
Right.
yeah, so like
So it really is hard. I mean, like, you would be sitting here, right?
basically,
You know?
I don't think.
It's
Yeah, who
unbelievable.
knows?
Yeah. Wow.
As for me, I completely agree. So many people who are in MSP, when you ask why they ended up going to OSU, they say because they got the Morrill Scholarship. And again, I also agree with you saying that it concentrates people like us. It concentrates people together to create this community that might otherwise have been dispersed across campus among 60,000 students. How do you find people like that and make the group that is Morrill Scholars Program these amazing people? And I would also say that I was passed around a lot as a kid. I haven't always felt that I have the monetary support that like parents or like wealthy parents can provide you, and so like you don't see a lot of foster kids, especially in college. And it just, that's the whole point of the scholarship, is to, make college possible for some people that might not otherwise be able to go. And college isn't the choice for everyone, but if you want it, I fully believe that, you should be able to take it because it does open doors for so many people. So I'm just so grateful to have been able to do college because of a Morrill Scholarship.
I'm sure it's amazing to be sitting here like on the brink of graduation and reflecting on all of this, right?
Growing up, I didn't think I would live to this point, let alone be as successful as I've become, make the network that I have, and a lot of that network is not just because like OSU is an amazing institution as it concerns bringing in like successful people from all over the world, but also just become successful in like creating the community that I have and getting the education that I have. 2 majors, like
it's amazing.
Yeah,
it really is.
Thanks.
Wow.
Yeah, you should be so proud of yourself.
Yeah,
That's
seriously.
I'm proud of all of us. Like
it's really amazing, and it's something that like, gosh, I mean, I can only fathom it based on what I've heard from you both, you know what I mean? But I can only imagine just how many lives it's changed over the course of its existence, right? Yeah. And I'm just wondering if there's a student now, maybe they're a middle school or maybe they're a high school, maybe they're a parent of somebody who's going through this, like, how can you get involved? Like, what is the scholarship process, or the application process rather? What does that entail? You said it involves writing an essay. What's that about? When does the application process usually open up? Like, what can people expect if they're wanting to maybe enroll or apply?
I can take this one. Gosh, so the application for the Morrill Scholars essay, you can access it through the Common App. I know a lot of people use the Common App to apply to school because it streamlines everything really nicely. And so you go to the page for OSU, and then there's like this tiny box that says, do you want to apply to the Morrill Scholars Program?
Wow.
A lot of people miss it.
Right.
You just check that box. It opens up a new text box. Or it opens up like a file entry. So you can make a Word document somewhere else. You can only write one page. This essay has to be 1 page long.
Yeah.
And then you insert that file into just your general college application page to OSU. And then I believe you can submit your OSU application, yes. And then you can update it and add the Morrill Scholarship application as well later. I will say that it's a rolling admission. So the earlier you apply to it, the better chance you have of getting accepted to the Morrill Scholarship. Officially, the hard deadline is February 1st of your senior year, because this is only open to people who are going to enter as college freshmen. So high school seniors, senior year, February 1st. That is the hard deadline. You have to have submitted. November 1st, I believe, is the early application deadline. And we highly, strongly suggest that you apply by then to OSU and to the Morrill Scholars Program.
That's great to know. That's pretty amazing that they include it in the Common App, because I feel like for so many scholarship programs, you have to either know it exists and dig for it yourself, or maybe you get an email or a flyer or something, but it could be very easy to miss.
Yeah.
It seems like it could be easy to miss this too if it's just a little checkbox. So that's really great that you're able to highlight that for folks.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and that's what I remember doing also. And I suggest going on college tours and all that, because that's, I think, where I heard about MSP. Because then I got connected to, I don't know if they're still part of OSU, but LASER, LASER. I'm blanking on what it stands for. But it's a Latina organization. And they had a essay writing thing. So for both college application in general, but also just other things. So I honestly owe it to them a little bit that I did get in and got accepted, just because they helped me with that, because they know what they're looking for.
Sure.
So the person that helped me out was like, word it this way, take this out, put this in.
Yeah.
What do you mean with this? Kind of thing, because also English second language and writing is now for me. So it's really helpful if you have the capacity and able to connect with other organizations at the colleges that you're thinking of applying to. It doesn't just have to be OSU, but OSU I know has a lot of those organizations, especially when it comes to diversity and inclusion, that are always looking for giving those resources out to upcoming freshmen to be able to apply, get the resources and all that, which is really great to be connected like that. So, but yeah, it's just a 1-page kind of thing, and then you just wait to hear back from get accepted to OSU and then get the scholarship.
Right.
Yeah.
And then make sure you're sitting down when you get that phone call, right?
Yeah, and get ice cream.
Yeah.
Or some sort of treat.
Right, yeah. Everyone needs a little sweet treat, right?
Yes.
Sweet treat. I think that is a point that I want to emphasize, though, of you reaching out to these organizations to ask for help, or maybe these organizations, you encounter them in whatever capacity. That's something that seems so intimidating as a high school senior, because you're the one trying to prove yourself to these schools. Hey, I want to go to your school. I want to be part of your programs. You kind of feel like you have to know it all, right? But these organizations want you there as much as you want to be there, right? In some ways, that's a financial reason, right? They want you to come spend your tuition dollars there. Ideally, you get a scholarship and don't have to spend those tuition dollars. But I know when I was touring colleges, and I went to Ohio University to tour. I missed the tour. Like, we had gotten stuck in traffic and I missed the tour, and I was feeling very overwhelmed and frustrated with my parents who were driving, and I was like, come on, we gotta get there, right? I'm never gonna go to college if we don't get there right now. And we got there and we just, let's pop into the admissions office, and they were like, oh my gosh, well, come on in. And they ended up giving the presentation to us one-on-one.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Oh, you're interested in journalism? Here, let's show you where that building is. Oh, you're here in the summer. Like, let's take you. I bet the director is in here. Yeah, sure enough. Hey, do you want to meet? You want to sit down, right? And my mom and I still pinch ourselves to this day. Like, how did we just get a private meeting with the director of the journalism school? Because we just happened to walk in on an August afternoon, right?
You'd be surprised.
You'd be surprised of like, these people want to meet you. They're looking to you as this beacon of like, wow, you are this incoming student. That is amazing. There's so much to learn from you as there is for us to teach you. Yeah. So it can be so trite to say, don't be intimidated by the application process. Yeah. It is so intimidating.
Yes, it is.
And also, like, you belong there. You have worked hard in high school and prior to that to make it to this point. Like, ask for those opportunities. Show up. Like, you deserve to be in that space too.
Yeah. And with that reminded me. There's also like summer before programs, or at least at OSU. I know, like, I was part of, since engineering was still what I was going into. Preface, which is another acronym that I'm blanking on what it stands for. There is, but they're for like underrepresented students going into engineering. So it was kind of like a summer, maybe a month or two. I'm not remembering, but you go in, you stay at a dorm, and you go to like classes. So you do have the opportunity to gain credits from that, or at least like know what it's gonna be like because high school classes are so different from college classes. Right. So it was like nice to get that. And also I had my times where I was at the library until 3 a.m. because chemistry. And I was like, well, this showed me that I don't want to take chemistry. So it worked out. Yeah. But yeah, with Preface, I met some of my closest friends too. And then some of them were also in MSP. So we kind of made that connection too. I already kind of had the community. And then later on, I was also a diversity ambassador and was able to, there were also MSP folks there and YSP. And so it's just like the communities that you can like be a part of or get to know. And like, it just is endless when you're in a community like that, for sure.
That's amazing.
I will say, start your essay hopefully in the summer. Your college applications hopefully in the summer. And then please reach out to us for help. Like, ours has done workshops where we help, people with their essays. And like, I've just seen students come to me with like certain ideas or like certain experiences, and they're like, I don't know what to write about. And I'm like, okay, like, what's tell me about like certain experiences that you've had, and they tell me, and I'm like, that is an amazing essay idea. Or like they come to me with like some bullet points and they don't know how to put things together, and I'm like, these are amazing ideas, like, and not everyone's a writer, not everyone, people want to help you, so I was one of those people that was like a gifted kid, in like elementary school.
How they get you.
Exactly. And then you're that person that like never wants to like receive tutoring, but you're gonna need it. But please ask for help, because not everyone's a writer, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't get to have nice things. Like,
right.
Me. Exactly. And the issue is like, there are so many people that deserve a place in college, but because you come from a certain background, that doesn't mean that you're recognized for that, right? But you should be. So we want to help.
Right. Like, arguably the learning experiences you have from being part of those backgrounds that like might not be considered as like college ready, right? The learning experiences you have from that is far outweighing what you're learning in high school in many capacities, right? In many situations. And so like those life experiences are valuable. Like, you don't feel like that's not something worthy of writing about in an essay, right? Like, that's your story. That's what you bring to this world. That's what that's what's going to shape how you impact the world moving forward too. And I think that's pretty amazing. And to be able to take those bullet points and turn them into something that's like, application worthy, that's a pretty important skill that you bring too. So if somebody wants to seek that support from ours, like how can they find that?
I have emails I can pull up.
Yeah, please.
And once I find them, I will say my personal email is BRIEMORGANG@gmail.com. That's a confusing email that I've had, but my student email is about to go away. So
Right.
Yeah.
that's one that you can reach out to personally. And then we also, I just passed on presidency to Caleb Hutchinson. His current student email is HUTCHINSON.368@osu.edu. And he would be a great person to funnel you towards someone else if he doesn't have time, because we have a whole club. So we have a team dedicated to helping students find the resources they need, whether it's essay writing, application writing, anything. So
That's
really cool that you all are doing that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
to not only be juggling your own coursework, but to be like, hey, I want to help other students to be part of this too. That's amazing.
In a sense, it makes it also a little less intimidating to like talk to students, or
Right.
like you talk to them first and then they take you to like a faculty if they're helping out with that or things like that. But I feel like that makes it a little easier in that way. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on this episode of Speaking Queerly. I know I've learned so much. I know this information is invaluable. I can already think of several students who I want to like have listen to this episode so that they can learn more about this. So thank you for being on and for sharing this and for being willing to provide just like your own contact information for people to reach out. That's pretty remarkable. So thank you.
thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here. I love doing this.
Yeah, we appreciate you and what you're doing, and congrats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck. I mean, graduation can be something that's like both exciting and anticlimactic at the same time. You walk across the stage and you're like, that was it, Like at Ohio State, you guys at least get diplomas, right? At OU, we didn't get a diploma.
No.
We got ours mailed like in the middle of the summer.
Oh.
My diploma is literally still sitting in a cardboard envelope in a corner of my bedroom at my parents' house because they didn't even give it to us in like a nice little thing, right? Like a little envelope folder thing, whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway, at least you have that to look forward to. But, I wish you the best of luck. I know that you're going to be off to do great things.
Yeah.
Save the
That's
wetlands.
amazing.
I'll try. And your work here is amazing. Keep doing what you're doing for as long as you can, as long as you're happy. But I can tell it makes you very happy, so.
Yeah, no
Thank you.
complaints.